Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Inside with your host Alamdar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you sports information from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. Yes, from the world of NBA, Brooklyn Nets managed to win against the Bucks 125-86, while the Phoenix Suns defeat Nuggets 122-105 in semi-final game 2. And yet from the world of golf, Patrick Cantlay rose 7 spots in the official golf ranking after the playoff win at the Memorial. And yes, from the world of French Open, Novak Djokovic battled back from 2 sets down to reach the French Open quarterfinals on Monday. And yes, from the world of rugby, 4 Munsters player burnt in fire pit accident over the weekend. We'll surely talk about that. And yes, those were the headlines, and surely we are talking about, obviously, the conference semifinals to begin with in terms of the NBA, and yet, yes, it has been interesting so far. If we look back into Brooklyn Nets, obviously winning against the Bucks 125-86 in the semifinal game number 2. And not only that we've also been discussing Phoenix Suns defeating Denver Nuggets 122-105 in game 2. But to discuss the in-depth analysis, we have with us Josh Reynolds, who is an NBA analyst. And Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm always happy to be back.
Great. So Josh, we'll talk about the game 2 to begin with. Yes, Brooklyn Nets finally showing what they truly are all about. Obviously, they won against the Bucks 125-86. You know, it's a huge lead, but if we look back into the game 1, we'll surely get back there as well, where it was a close call for Brooklyn Nets winning against the Bucks, which was 115-107. So we'll talk about this game first. How did you find the game 2 in terms of the entire performance from the Nets?
The Nets looked exactly like we've all been afraid they would look. If you remember back in game 1, James Harden ended up getting hurt just a few seconds into the game. So
right.
we still unfortunately haven't been able to really see that three-headed monster much. But it does not look like they need it. And in the weirdest way, I don't know if they're better without James Harden, but boy, did they look every bit as good last night. This was all Brooklyn very early on. Ended up winning the game by about 39 points, but it was very, very widely spread out. Kevin Durant had 32 points. Kyrie Irving had about 22. Blake Griffin had some flashes. He looked like his old. There was a dunk he had on Giannis that was like a flashback in a time machine to the Clippers days. And to be doing all this without James Harden really is incredible. But the Bucks just they look like a nightmare.
Right.
Giannis Antetokounmpo at 18 points, took him 15 shots to get there. Same with Chris Middleton, had about 17 points on 20 shots. Drew Holiday only shot the ball 10 times at 13 points. Then you look at guys who they went out and traded for, like PJ Tucker, like Bryn Forbes. PJ Tucker only had 2 points on 2 shots. That's
right.
Not going to get it done. And it just looks like the Bucks are dead in the water. I don't know how they could possibly get up for games 3 and 4 after they looked in game 2.
Right. And if we look back, this is the same Bucks who actually managed to win against the Brooklyn Nets a few weeks ago. And that too, they managed to win 2 in a row, if I'm not wrong. And right now, if we even see Giannis, in the previous game, he scored like 32 points, I think. And now he's he's in a total blockade now. I think finally we see the Brooklyn Nets right there with the perfect duo, because obviously James Harden is not playing, did not play, for the past 2 games as discussed. But now, currently, what do you see? What do the Bucks have to do to get back to their form? Because I think it's a big heartbreak for them.
It is, and this is the playoffs. It's you were right. To end the season, Milwaukee ended up beating Brooklyn 2 straight games, and they looked unbelievable. They looked unstoppable. But it's the playoffs, and things get a little bit tighter. Defensives get a little bit tighter, and the Nets just take the approach of, hey, we're just going to outscore you.
Right.
But they just smothered Brooklyn, Brooklyn smothered Milwaukee all night.
Right.
Giannis needs to be more aggressive. Brooklyn just absolutely took him out of the game. Chris Middleton just couldn't buy a shot. But other than that, Drew Holiday's got to shoot the ball more than 10 times. PJ Tucker to only have 2 points on 2 shots is absolutely absurd. Milwaukee took the approach of throwing Giannis Antetokounmpo onto Kevin Durant. So that's a great matchup. Obviously, Giannis being a reigning defensive player of the year, he's a former MVP. Like, that is a great matchup. That's the matchup you want.
Right.
But from the very beginning, Kevin Durant just dominated. Giannis looked just gassed. I truly do not see how Milwaukee can get it together, get their composure together, and show up for games 3 and 4. It'll be nice that it's home and it's back in Milwaukee. So we'll have to see. I think we'll be able to tell very early on in game 3 if Milwaukee's going to show up to the series or not.
Right. And if we currently look into the entire match and we divide it into the quarters, at the very start, Brooklyn Nets with 36, with Milwaukee Bucks only 19. So that's almost the double, almost double to Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that was the biggest pressure that they have. And not to forget, if you look back into the previous game, the last quarter was the only quarter in which, Bucks managed to score pretty much more than, Brooklyn Nets. So now I understand the strategy. Maybe they knew back then in game 1 that, they're there. Brooklyn Nets is up to the point where they wanted to be. And here they are. They open up like opposite to Milwaukee Bucks, and I think it's a big step on for them, because now Bucks need to, I think, step up more, because a few more games and things may be handy for them. But I don't know what kind of strategy would they have to devise for this part.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think we saw in game 2 that Brooklyn was, like you mentioned, right out of the gate. This was, oh wow, they're here to play. They're not messing around. And Milwaukee just looked tired. They looked flat. They did not look and match Brooklyn's energy one bit.
Right.
So that's what they need to do in game 3. They need to come out of the gate just like Brooklyn did in game 2. Come out of the gate swinging. They need to show some life. They need to show some fight. I would expect to see a big quarter from Giannis and from Chris Middleton starting game 3. Like I mentioned, it's back in Milwaukee, so it's going to be in front of their home crowd. But yeah, they have to show some life early, or Brooklyn is going to do the exact same thing and run them out of the gym.
Right. Let's hope things formulate well for them, because obviously we would definitely want a close call game. This game was pretty much one-sided, to be honest. 125 and 86. That's a huge lead to look into, because the first match was 115 to 107, which kind of makes sense that both the teams were struggling. But here we are with this much amount of lead. Anyways, we'll surely look forward on what happens next. I want to talk about the next game that actually took place. The Suns obviously beating the Nuggets 122 to 105. What's your take on this one?
This was a much closer game. It took until about halfway through the fourth quarter before Phoenix really went on their run and pulled ahead. This matchup of Denver and Phoenix is going to be so fun. This series is going to be a slugfest, and I'm really excited to see it. Game 1 did not disappoint. The Suns looked amazing. Every starter had they were in double figures. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, they each had 21 points. Mikal Bridges, just fantastic. Obviously a wonderful 3-and-D guy, but he ended up with 23 points as well.
Right.
Suns looked amazing. I'm very, very impressed, and they are a fun team to watch. The Nuggets need to get Jokic some help. We've seen Michael Porter Jr., we've seen Austin Rivers, we've seen some of these guys like Aaron Gordon who come along and help with the scoring. Last night, they needed that. It took Jokic 23 shots to get his 22 points. That's not going to get it done, but there was a lot riding on his shoulders because there was nobody else producing offensively. Aaron Gordon had 18 points. Michael Porter Jr., who does their bulk of their scoring besides Jokic, only had 15 points. So, yeah, Denver looked the better team pulled ahead at the end of the game, and that was Phoenix. But Chris Paul just sliced and diced. That guy, he runs the pick and roll and plays the point guard position better than really anybody I've seen in my lifetime. But yeah, it's a joy to watch.
And if we look at the score line, we talk about the first half. If you look at the first half, they both started off equally, 28 points in the first quarter, and then 29 and 30 points in the second quarter, which means that the lead was only of 1 point by halftime. But obviously the strategy changed absolutely. 10 points lead in the third quarter, which kind of gave them the push that they needed. So I guess that's something they need to focus on, because after that, Phoenix Suns managed to score 31 and 34 points in the second, third, and in terms of the second half, to be precise. So how do you see in the future the next scenario or the upcoming game for them? How do you think, what kind of strategy should they be opting for?
Yeah, like I mentioned, Denver's just got to get Nikola Jokic some help. He's most likely going to be the MVP this year, and that's fantastic. And you know that he's going to do what he does. He's a near triple-double every single night.
Right.
Last night, not an exclusion, but he's got to get some help offensively. And I expect all of that and that bulk of that load to fall on Michael Porter Jr.'s shoulders. So you expect him to have many more shots, many more opportunities, especially more points than only 15. That's not going to get it done. And like you mentioned in the second half, just right out of the gate, come out the second half, it was all Phoenix. And you saw very early, okay, they're at home. They've got the push here. Chris Paul leading the charge. Denver needs some help offensively, and that's got to come. And last series, that kind of came from Morris off the bench. That would be a very welcome sight for Denver. But I would very much expect Aaron Gordon to get some points. They kept matching him up with Devin Booker, and Booker's just too small. And Aaron Gordon, I think, figured that out a little too late. So expect Aaron Gordon to go down low pretty quickly right off the bat, and Michael Porter Jr. to definitely be more efficient offensively.
Interesting take on that. And now I would surely want to talk about one more game that's also a very close call, which happened obviously on Sunday with the 76ers versus the Hawks, because now they have game 2 lined up for tonight. So what's your take on this situation that now this match was surely 100% the closest that you could see up till now. So how do you see the 76ers in the future for the game 2 defending that victory, because obviously they lost 124 to 128 to the Hawks?
I expect Philadelphia to come out much more aggressive, much more quickly. It took them about 3 quarters to actually wake up, and I expect them to come out of the gate firing tonight. I'm very interested to see what we do with Trae Young, whether we throw Ben Simmons on him right out of the gate, whether it's Matisse Thybulle. It'll be very interesting to see how we try to slow him down, or if we don't slow him down at all and just let him go and kind of do his thing. The Sixers started to double team him towards the end. Yes, they were obviously trying to catch up, but that's when they really caused some problems with the ball in Trae's hands. So I'll be interested to see what they kind of do defensively, if they decide to be aggressive and double right out of the gate, or if they just kind of roll with their matchup and throw potential defensive player of the year Ben Simmons on him and just kind of roll out with that matchup.
And I think, when we talk about Joel Embiid, obviously he managed to score 39 points that game. And I think it overall gives a very strong perspective to the 76ers. And I'm very hopeful that, the next game that's coming up our way will surely be another close call.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think Embiid will have another monster night. Coming off that knee injury, he did not look like he skipped a beat at all. Hopefully that can continue for Philadelphia. And like I said, in game 1, Atlanta played the best that they possibly could. They shot the lights out of the ball and did it pretty often and shot about 50% from 3 throughout the entire game. So we'll see if they can continue that. I expect Embiid to still obviously carry the bulk of the scoring, but yeah, they're gonna need some help off the bench, that is for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of rotations Doc Rivers rolls out.
Right. So looking forward to that match tonight, and surely once things make more shape up well, we'll definitely get in touch with you again, Josh. Thank you very much for being a part of the show.
Hey, you got it. Always happy to be back.
Great. So yes, that was pretty much the analysis of the conference's semifinals that are happening. And yes, we're looking forward to the next game, which is the 76ers versus the Hawks, which is going to be tonight. And not only that, we would also want to focus on the Jazz versus the Clippers, that also tonight. But anyways, we'll surely give you updates on it as soon as they happen. But meanwhile, what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and once we're back from the break, we'll discuss more World of Sports with you. See you guys after the break. And yes, welcome back from the break. And before the breaks, we were discussing obviously the playoff semifinals in terms of the world of NBA. But now we'll surely want to talk about golf. And yes, as discussed with you guys earlier, how Patrick Cantlay managed to win, at the Memorial, and obviously winning made him rise 7 spots. But to discuss the in-depth analysis of the world of golf, we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Art Strickland, who also has done so much in the field of golf. He's written a book called The Art of Golf Travel, and there's so much publications in terms of his experience and achievements out there. Mr. Art, welcome to the show.
Glad to be with you. Always plenty to talk about in the world of golf.
Great. So I'll start off with the memorial to begin with. Obviously, when the memorial started, the first day, obviously, and the round one that started off, the weather changed in Ohio, in the perspective of the golf itself, and it took like the weather changed twice, and then they had to move it to the next day. So how do you see, obviously, Patrick Cantlay to begin with and his victory? Because now his victory in that tournament has actually brought him, risen up to 7 spots.
Yeah, really interesting. It's funny with golf and the way different tournaments are, but there's been 46 Memorial Golf tournaments played since the tournament was first started. 17 of those 46 have been either delayed or postponed because of rain.
Right.
So rain is certainly a big factor at Memorial. So I think players know that going in, and they perhaps plan for that. They realize that rain is going to be a factor. So I don't think that really threw him off. But the fact that Cantlay, persevered, he won there 2 years ago. So there's a saying on the golf course, they say horses for courses. And that means that guy who does well at a particular course will do well again. And so Cantlay had won 2 years ago at the Memorial Tournament, which is right outside of Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
And winning again. Of course, very tough situation. The fact that Jon Rahm had a 6-shot lead and then was forced to withdraw after the third round. So Cantlay went from being 6 shots behind going to the final day to being tied for the lead for the final day. And certainly he took advantage of that.
And yes, if we look at the entire perspective, when we talk about Jon Rahm, he was tested positive for the COVID-19 situation, even though now we see a lot of, at least attendance is still out there, which is surely a moral support for people and the players out there. But Jon Rahm was obviously, he withdrew from the tournament, and obviously it did affect. But a lot of people are still out there because golf is not a contact sport. I think that's probably one of the major reasons. Now we see more and more people coming in. So what's your take on Jon Rahm being tested positive and then obviously asked to be withdrawn from the tournament?
Well, certainly an unfortunate situation for him to test positive like that. One of the things I think that came out of this whole situation is that Jon Rahm had not been vaccinated. The PGA Tour official said that probably 50%, a little bit more than 50% of the players have not been vaccinated against this COVID pandemic. Right. And as it turned out, Jon Rahm had not been vaccinated. So he was in someone close to him, did not say who, but someone the tour had tested. So that would mean perhaps a caddy or someone, a teacher or someone like that, right. Had COVID. Rahm was close to him. But the fact he had not been vaccinated means that he contacted COVID himself and had to withdraw. So unfortunate for him. I think that what you're going to see is this is going to make more players on the tour want to get vaccinated. Right. They're going to want to say, I don't want that happen to me, which happened to Rahm. And certainly to have to withdraw with the 6-shot lead, can't ever tell for sure what would have happened on the final round Sunday, but certainly he would have been in a very strong position to win if he hadn't had to withdraw.
Right. And if obviously, at least now slowly and gradually people are thinking and considering the idea of getting vaccinated, specifically when it comes to the players and the golfers. And like you said, he surely was at a very good position by the time he withdrew. He could have maybe won the tournament. But if we look at the current standing, obviously, if we talk about Cantlay, he actually managed to come to number 7 in terms of, because he was at number 15. And not only him, if we talk about DeChambeau, he fell from number 4 to number 5. And in terms of Jordan Spieth, he remained on the 23rd spot in the world golf ranking. So what's your take on this entire perspective?
I just think that these players, and Jack Nicklaus is really the guy who started this, and Tiger Woods certainly followed it. Players on the tour today try to prime their game for 4 times a year. They try to prime their game for the major championships. The Masters, obviously, which is in April. Right. The U.S. Open, which will be coming up in a couple weeks in California, Torrey Pines. The Open Championship, which is held in the UK, and then the American PGA, which is held So I think that's what you see. You see players trying to prime their game, and that's why a lot of players may not be as concerned by how they did in Memorial. They want their game to be at a peak level for the U.S. Open, which is only in a couple weeks. And so that's really, the week-to-week tournaments are great, and certainly the Memorial is very prestigious with Jack Nicklaus as the tournament host. But prime your game for 4 times a year. That's what the tour is looking for, and that's what the players are looking for. That's what Jack did. That's certainly what Tiger did, and that's what the other players do. Now, how you go about that, that's a very interesting thing. Dustin Johnson, who is number 1 in the world, is playing this week in South Carolina in a brand new tournament. No one's ever played it before. So Justin Johnson is playing in that tournament because he wants to be sharp when he goes to the U.S. Open. All these other players, Jordan Spieth, Bryson, they're taking the week off. They're taking the week to practice. So how the players approach that, very interesting.
And talking about the prestigious events, if we talk about, and I'll just go back to 2 different, at least a month ago, we talk about the PGA Championship and, seeing Phil Mickelson making his mark, and I think that has been a phenomenal perspective, and I would surely want your input on Phil Mickelson as a golfer.
Oh, just remarkable. I mean, it really is remarkable. And where they played at Kiawah Island, which is a resort on the east coast of the Americas, right in South Carolina, the longest championship ever played, 7,400 yards is where they played it, from the longest one ever. And the fact that Phil, at age 50, he's twice as old as some of those other players, twice. And the fact that he could persevere, he could hit it as far, sometimes farther, that just shows you that guys who have played a long time, like Phil obviously has played a long time, you don't lose your mental ability, you don't lose your strategic ability, and then the physical ability. You may not be as strong as you were with some of the young guys, but you can overcome that, and Phil certainly did. The fact he was the oldest major championship in golf history, truly remarkable. And all credit to him. And he's going to his hometown. Phil is from San Diego, which is where the U.S. Open is being played in a couple weeks. And so the fact he's come home, playing in the one major he has not won, and it's finished second 6 times, I think sets up a fascinating time. But all credit for Phil that he won, and the fact that he overcame such a strong field.
Sir, thank you so very much, Mr. Art, for being a part of the show and discussing the in-depth analysis on the world of golf with us.
Yes, I'm glad to do it. And golf is a fascinating sport. I'm very much looking forward to the U.S. Open with Phil and with Bryson, with Justin Johnson, just to see what's going to happen for the next major champion.
Done. Thank you. Looking forward for that. So there was an in-depth analysis in terms of the world of golf, and Mr. Art actually had a lot of in-depth analysis with regards to that. But now, surely we want to talk more about the world of sports. We'll quickly jump over to the world of tennis, and let's talk about Novak Djokovic, who actually reached the quarterfinals on Monday. Not to forget that he had a very tough match against Lorenzo Musetti, who actually he eventually managed to win 6-7, 6-7, 6-1, 6-0, and 4-0. I think it was a huge tournament. And not to forget, it's Djokovic's 19th successive, he actually won 19 successive points at the end of the 3rd set. I think he started to make that comeback. And obviously he recovered from an opening set wobble. Obviously that was on the tough side for him, but he finally managed to do that. Not to forget, Rafael Nadal also made it to the final 8 in the French Open, and Nadal actually managed to beat Jannik Sinner 7-5, 6-3 and 6-0. So this was from the world of tennis. I'll quickly jump over to the world of rugby. Yes, major news in terms of that. Yes, 4 Munsters players burnt in fire pit accident over the weekend, and Damien Simon Stander and Mike Haley were involved in the accident, and they are surely were the main people touring South Africa to face the Lions. The World Cup winners will meet the specialist, and obviously now they're looking forward to handle the situation and those injuries that they have been suffering. And Haley suffered burns to their hand as well. So let's hope that things are in control for them. Obviously, they are ready to face the Lions, but the point is that being burned in such a situation and circumstance would surely give definitely a little bit push behind. But we wish them a quick recovery. But anyways, guys, if you want to reach out to us, you can on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. Till then, take good care of yourself. Bye bye.